So checking in with your hips. And sinking, just allowing yourself to just sink into your feet and accept. There's a sensation of standing that feels like labor. And there's the sensation, the Tai Chi way of standing is to accept the earth beneath your feet, accept the support, and then just build the buoyancy through your body. So if the hips, of course, are tight and held, then that's the main junction between the upper and the lower, heaven and earth. So we start here. And you're moving in such a way as to just listen. Yeah, we're warming up, but we're also kind of seeing what's going on. You can place your hands wherever you feel you need a little more awareness and a little more support. And then just let yourself circle the other way. And then bring the feet together, bend the knees. Your first back stretch. So if you just draw your navel ever so slightly towards your sacrum or towards your back, you're going to get a little more stretch through the low back. Knees together and circle. Just looking for circulation at this point. And if the back is tight, then that's going to cut off the above and below communication, connection, and flow. And then circle the opposite direction. Taking note, if you can feel your knees with your hands, sometimes that popping and cracking. But if you place your hands over your knees, that actually adds warmth and energy. So it helps to warm your knees. And of course, we're also stirring the ankles and the feet. And then up to the heart. So we're up at the middle dantian. Letting the chest, the sternum stretch open. The fronts of the shoulders release. The middle to upper back start to warm up. And just kind of wake up. And then, of course, that brings us up to the neck, lifting the crown, ear to the shoulder, and then relax and drop the head. Nice and easy forward. And to the other side. And then turn out the opposite hand. So by now you have a sense of, oh, that's really tight, or that's, I haven't inhabited that area of my body. And that's really just what you're doing right now, is just not only gently warming up, but becoming aware of where your tightness is. So you can work with it. So we're going to roll down so the nose drops the chin towards the chest. So just do that a couple times, your head level And then dropping your chin or your nose towards your chest, and just feel how that stretches up by the cranial base. And then lift and drop. And lift and drop. And then soften the heart, soften the solar plexus, feeling your lower dantian, reaching towards your low back, and then let your hands come to about knee level, because when you're at knee level, you're really targeting that low back. And I'm just going to hang out here. And if you need to soften your knees because your back is compromised, do so. Just let that hanging sensation, releasing the back. And then you can gently move side to side, becoming aware of how the side of the low back, one side might be tighter than the other, and that's not uncommon. The fact that we have hand dominance sends the anchor to either one side, the opposite side, or the same side of the back as the shoulder. So I drop my tailbone as though somebody's pulling my tailbone into the ground. I bend my knees and I roll back up. And then each time I go down, I go a little further down, which is then going to wake up the hamstring. So chin in, soften the heart, solar plexus, draw the navel in a bit just to get some openness through the low back. And this time I'm going mid-chin, and you can just go to whatever feels good to you. And again, you just feel where that engages the stretch. So the lower you go, the more leg you're going to get. That's why we start up at the knees, so you feel the low back first. And then rocking a little bit side to side just to let the upper hamstring and the attachment just sort of get wrung out. I know you already feel wrung out, but this is a different kind of wringing out. Okay, and then drop the tail and roll back up. And the last time you go as far as you're comfortable going, which in my case will be close to my ankles, and I will then feel the stretch down, behind the calf. So chin again, whole bladder meridian, back of the head, down the sides of the spine, rolling forward as far as you're comfortable going. Just let yourself hang from your sits bones. And then roll side to side, noticing how that twisting and turning kind of brings out the longitudinal tissue of the backs of your legs. And you may also feel it in your low back. All right, so we're going to bend the knees, tailbone dropped into the ground, the arms are just kind of hanging, and then we float back up. So we're going to step out and do our leg stretches, which we don't often do. Get rid of this, because we have not as much time as we'd like. Fold at the hip crease, long in the spine, a nice flat back, and just let the upper hamstring really stretch out. Okay, so we know that that's bladder as we stretch forward. And then we're going to bend the knees slightly so that we can move side to side. So we shift to one side, and with the foot on the ground, we reach that inner seam, that area of the inner leg, and that's liver, also a yin meridian. Moving side to side, just letting those stretch, keep your feet flat. And then when we lift the toes, we're in the inside back of the leg, and that's kidney. And you'll notice it kind of feels different. Lift the toes and lift the toes. It's not an area we think about that much, the inside back of the adductor, where that meridian runs. Unless, of course, it gets injured, then you know about it. Okay, and we come back, open the knees one more time and just let yourself stretch. And then walk your feet in heel toe, heel toe. Turn the toes inward. Relax forward. And just let your knees softly bend and let your belly just rest on your thighs. This is really nice for just getting a little stretch through the SI joints. Also, the bladder area. The bladder points zigzag through your sacrum. And then turning the toes outward, letting my knees bend in the direction of my toes. And here you don't want to strain. You're just going to open up your knees and then bend your knees, making sure the knees follow the direction of the toes, and just relax, kind of hang out. Don't try too hard because the tissue will relax more easily if you're not pushing it. So I bend my knees and I drop my tail. And if you're used to doing, the yogic position, the crow pose, then you can sit all the way down as long as the knees follow the toes and you're comfortable in this position. And then if you're sitting, then you don't have to go up and down. You can just sit, lift the crown, drop the tail, push out through your elbows, bring your chin in, fingertips up. It's a very nice pose to really deeply open the pelvic floor and all the attachments for your adductors. So don't worry about this if you're not here yet. It actually takes a while to get to that. But once you get there, it's a very nice opening for the hip joints. Okay? And it gets deeply into that attachment, the kidney meridian. I slowly come up and I come back to circling my hips. So we've opened up the lower. Now we're going to open up the upper, just doing some of Alex's Qigongs. Okay, so I'm going to let my hands come up and push the palms forward. And we're just going to do two each in each one of the Qigongs. So raising one hand and lowering the other. And the idea for me is to lift my crown away from my tailbone, which helps me to separate my hands. So if I don't get the lift through my spine, it's going to be harder on my shoulder. I slowly do this so I can listen to anything that's might be off in the shoulder. Chin in, tailbone down. Extend the spine and then separate the hands. Okay, that's one set. And the second one, chin in, tailbone down. Extend the spine, lift the hand, push back. So your hand may not go all the way up due to some past injury. And, I'm somebody who had frozen shoulders, so I know what that feels like. But if you just tend to it through your core, eventually your shoulder position will change and it will get easier. Okay, so my hands are forward and now I keep one hand planted and I turn away. Knees stay with the toes and I let the heart turn to the side. And then I push my hands apart from one another. And you may feel the back of that shoulder, starting to burn a little bit. And that's a good thing for waking up the back of the shoulder, which is often asleep. Come back to the front and slowly keep one hand planted, knees forward, heart to the side, push the hands apart, chin in, tailbone down. If you're tight in your biceps, you may feel it across the inside of your arm. And again, just one more set. Heart to the side, chin in, tailbone down. Really press the hands apart. Feel that stretch. Feel the wake up of the back of the shoulder. And come back. Again, you don't have to do a million of these, but if you do a few slow and mindfully, you'll get the benefit. And you'll also be more likely to listen to your body, what the restrictions are, and what you need to be careful of. So the heart to the side, Chin and tailbone down, push out through your hands. Wake up the back of the shoulder and slowly return. Okay, so I'm going to bend my elbows and lift the elbows up again, chin and tailbone down, so that I don't want to have my tailbone out and try to lift my elbows. I want to drop my tail, lift my crown, and then lift my shoulders. Okay, so the core is straight. The elbows go out to the side. And for a lot of us, this out to the side might be a little forward. Just try to open them to the back. And then press the hands out to the sides. And we come around to the front. Bend the elbows. And drop the tail, lift the crown, lift the elbows, feel that stretch. Push the elbows out to the sides and a little bit to the back. And then release the arms. Stretch. And come back. Okay, we're going to drop the elbows and push the hands away and just release the wrists. Okay, so we're going to work on the stance. We just opened up meridians in the legs and meridians in the arms. And now we want to make sure that we're keeping the central meridian long so that we don't unduly weigh down the knees. Okay, so at first I'm just going to take a small horse stance, find my hip creases, put my hands right in my hips, and push my thighs downward as I lift my crown, bring the chin and the tailbone down, lift the crown upward. It's almost like you have, a bungee cord in the center line, and you're trying to stretch that bungee cord and then let it relax. So hands push down and away, stretch the bungee cord internally and release. And of course, we are full of elastin fibers, so we are a bungee cord. But if you don't use the bungee cord, it gets dry and cracked up and doesn't work so well. So we're trying to get resilience back in the body, right through the core. And release. Okay, and then we're to step into a channel. So if you're in a standing position and you just feet are shoulder width and parallel, and it's really wonderful for me I was just teaching some brand new beginners this week live. It's always good for me to go back to the beginning till I realize that when we stand, we have these standing habits, toes out or toes in, and that speaks to what's going on in the whole pelvis and what's happening in the hip joints. So we want to train ourselves always when we're practicing, which then will come into life, to have the toes pointed forward and the feet right underneath the armpit. Okay, so that's how we start. So if we bring the heel in and we send the foot out, we keep the channel space. So if my feet were wide enough and I bring my heel in, I should have half of shoulder width left, which leaves a space between my feet. I keep that space, send the other foot out on that line, and then I have a channel. Okay, so just reconnecting with your channel, which it should be based on your own shoulder width. And the step forward is something that you can maintain the balance, step out, put the foot down and roll forward, and then roll off the foot, pick up the toes, and then pick up the knee. If you can do that, that's probably the right distance for you. If you're way too far out and you have to throw your upper body to pick your leg up, that's too far away. Okay, so you got your channel. And now we're going to straighten the knees. Just straighten your knees. And as though somebody has you by your hair, just like we just did with the exercise, lift your crown way, way up, like exaggerate your lift. So you're really lengthening through your internal organs and through all the spine, all the discs, and where all the nerves come out. You're giving that all some space. And then draw the navel a little bit towards the sacrum. Let the pelvic floor find the ground. And then soften the knees. But you want to feel as though somebody's got you by the hair. And when you When you sit, the lengthening becomes more. Okay, so you're putting a little bit more upward tension through the spine as you sit. So we often sit and we take the whole spine and we mash it down on the legs, which puts a tremendous strain on the knees and on the lower body. That's not necessary. But if you imagine somebody's got your hair, and as you lower your tailbone and soften your knees, you feel a further lengthening through your spine. That's going to have a much lighter and more buoyant feel, so that now we've had the connect to the ground as support, and then rise up off that support for buoyancy up to the crown. So the middle way is to be able to accept that support, but also rise up from it. And then we have the spaces back to our joints. Okay, so the way to check if you have too great a knee bend. So too great a knee bend is going to make your knees ache. It's going to give you soreness under your kneecaps. It's going to be overstrain of the ligaments under there. But if you lightly bounce, and I mean lightly bounce, you're not jiggling all over the place, but you're just kind of lightly bouncing through your legs, you tend to find the right springy type of shape to your knees, to the leg bend. Okay, so if I'm upright and I bounce, I feel like I'm taking way too much vibration up above. And if I bend my knees too much, I get too much of the vibration down below, and my knees are complaining. Okay, the middle way is to feel that upward pull, lower the tailbone, and then just soften the knees somewhere in between, the middle way, not too low and not too high, not too stiff and straight, but not too bent. So the bounce is usually the place that allows you to feel the vibration through your whole body, kind of evenly distributed from your dantian outward. Okay, so it's a really good technique for finding the right position for your knees, but it's also a good technique for breaking up held patterns in the body. So shake the tree, we've done that, probably a million years ago. Shake the tree is a Qigong in which you just kind of bounce. And that bouncing, it's much like Traeger body work. It helps to break up the signal of held action. It's something held, like held in your shoulder or in your neck or anywhere in your body. So as I bounce, if there's an area of my body that really comes into my awareness, it's generally an area that's tight and held. So I can look at that area and just see if I can't let go of something I wasn't aware of holding. Okay, when you stop, just see if you can't reconnect with that inward up and the support under your feet. You're finding the balance between heaven and earth. Okay, so we're going to step out of this, and I don't care how many years of Tai Chi you have. These are excellent. Everybody has to readdress their stance work over and over and over again. Be willing to throw out an old pattern and bring in something fresh. Okay, so we're back to shoulder width. Toes are forward. My feet are under my armpits. I'm lifted through the crown, and I bring my heel in. Now I have half of shoulder width left, and I draw a straight line with the other foot that's going to go forward, and I step out. Okay, just notice when you step out, you might just step out into like, oh, I'm going to do my Tai Chi, and you're already kind of crowding into the earth, and that's not really a good use of the earth. We're using the earth as a support to lift up. So I'm going to open my knees and lift my crown as though somebody, and sometimes it can feel good to just get the tops of your ears and lift your spine from the top of your ears, because that's really very close to the center of your head. Feel that lift, and then feel as though somebody's kind of pulling your hair upward as you regulate your pelvis, that is, drop your tailbone, use a little bit of core to open up the low back, and then just soften your knees. Not too big a bend. Your knees should be following your toes. So if you have a little pull or drag with the back leg, just allow your adductors to relax outward so that your knees can find your toes. If you tend to supinate, you may need to bring the middle of your foot into the earth, or make connection with the inside of your foot. So you don't want to roll too far out or too far in. Really the bones right through the center of the knee to the foot. And then from there, just a light bounce. It's not so heavy that you feel a total distraction, but you want to bounce into the middle of your foot and then think of the middle of your crown being held upward at the same time. So you have that nice lengthened spine. Generally, the bounce will find the right position. If you straighten your knees and you bounce, you may notice that there's a lot of tightness above. And if you bend your knees too much, you have too much feel through your knees and through your feet. And we're looking for the middle way. So I straighten, draw my navel in, drop my tailbone, soften my knees. The middle way is I bounce from the middle and feel the vibration up and down. And then just notice wherever there's a holding pattern, so it's not a time to beat yourself up like, oh, what's going on over there? Just say, oh, that's interesting. I really feel this quadrant of my body doesn't really want to bounce. And that's just a place that you might be holding more than anywhere else in your body. So again, just doing the bounce, have a little faith that the frequency of the bounce is helping you to break up with the frequency that your brain is telling that part to stay tight. That's how trigger bodywork works. And it works with the brain and the nervous system. Okay, so then stop, and you might feel a little tingling going on in your body. That's common. Reconnect with the upward lift. And from that upward lift, as though somebody were putting a puppet down to make contact with a surface. Okay, so that you're making contact and you can use the surface and you can rest on the surface, but without losing the upward lift. Okay. I'm taking every joint from my dantian and moving it from my dantian up and out to my fingers, and then dantian down, it's out through the hips and down through the feet. So I'm essentially moving everything away from this lower dantian. Okay.